We've got you covered. This is News 4 Tucson.
Breaking down Arizona Wildcats football. The Wildcats fall in the Territorial Cup game, the 94th edition, at the hands of the rival Arizona State Sun Devils, 70-7. I'm David Kelly. Wildcat Breakdown, joined as always by my man Glenn Howell, U of A football class of 1985. And Glenn, I want to start with this game, which we will talk about because that's what we do every week. But just to me, and not necessarily this game, but the entire season, we knew that this defense was going to struggle this year with all of the defections that they had and guys leaving and losing, four quality starters. But we expected more from this offense than what we've gotten this season. And to me, it starts up front with the offensive line. And in that second quarter, the offensive line play was about as bad as I think that I've seen at the University of Arizona. There were penalties. There were multiple missed blocking assignments. I mean, you talk about, and I'm not talking about just one guy, Glenn. I'm talking about every single guy that lined up at either center, the two guard positions, the two tackle positions, the tight end positions. It just did not live up to what we thought we were going to get this season from the offensive line, and their play short-circuited all of 5 of these games, really, for the Wildcats, and in particular, it short-circuited this game against the Sun Devils.
Well, Dave, first of all, that game was just horrendous play by every facet of the game. Special teams, you take that off for the first second of the game, and then you have offense and defense, man. That game was so brutal, man. I had to take an ice bath on Sunday morning. It was so bad for us. We were just hurting. Everybody in Wildcat Nation was hurting. And it was just horrible the way the effort was in that game. And you know what? We just can't let this happen anymore. And I think Dave Hinkie felt the same way. And it was just too much for us to bear. And we had to let our coach go.
Again, we talked at the beginning a little bit about the offensive line, and the big question after the ball game was this team prepared to play? And I want to push back. Now, I don't get to go to a lot of games just because of the way of the scheduling and having to anchor here at the station on weekends, but this generally is the one game I get to go to every year. So I was there for pregame, and I was there through warm-ups, and I thought these guys were prepared to play. Just looking out there, watching them go through their warm-ups, I felt like that. And when you look at what transpired in that first half, granted, again, and I'll go back to what happened in the Colorado game when Jarek Broussard broke off that first big long run, and I said last week on Breakdown, I felt like that sucked the air out of the building. I think that was the same thing that happened with this kickoff at the beginning. It completely sucked everything out of this team.
Yeah, and Dave, also there was just a deficiency of talent from our side. I think it was
no question.
There you could see it in the play of our players, and it just wasn't good. I think we have to be able to put better quality on the field, and we have to be able to coach them up and be able to make them better. Because let's be honest with it. We're a 2- and 3-star school. We have to create 2- and 3-star guys into 4 and maybe sometimes 5. We have to create them. We make them a better player. We really have to do some coaching and really have to put them in great situations where they can become those kind of players. And we just haven't been doing that.
Yeah, which is why I think, and I'm glad you made that point, because my point being there was that I disagree with people that say that this team was not prepared, that Arizona State was simply just a better club than Arizona. And if you look at the offense and what happened and the guys that were making the mistakes, i.e. the quarterback, Grant Cannell, and the running back, Gary Brightwell early, I would hard pressed to say that those are two guys who are probably the most prepared players on the offense going into any given Saturday.
Yeah, and I was very surprised about Brightwell. Brightwell's usually solid. I mean, the guy's solid, and Grant too. I mean, you just don't see those kind of mistakes, and sometimes mistakes are made because players on the other side make you make those mistakes, okay? And that's where I think some of those mistakes happened. Some of those mistakes on the offensive line were because they were just outplayed. There were better athletes up there in front, and they were just making plays. And that's one thing we had to do in this game is make big plays, and we didn't make any at all.
Glenn, it might be a little early to do this, but I'm going to throw it out there. I like Will Plummer. I really like what I've seen from Will Plummer. I think he can make some throws that Grant Cannell simply cannot make. So it might be early for, and don't get me wrong, whoever the coach is going to be, it's going to be an open competition going into next season. It should be an open competition going into next season. But based on what I've seen over the last 3 games, and granted, he only had 1 touchdown drive. I thought he had that 4th down opportunity. I thought he stared down Stanley Berryhill on that particular play. He had Jamari Joyner open on a slant, so there are still some things that he needs to do. But I've seen him make some throws that I don't think that Grant Cannell could make. If I was starting into next season, I think he would be at the front of the line moving forward to quarterback this football team.
Well, I kind of disagree with that. I think Grant should be our guy going in. I think that, we got to make sure that we improve him and improve the people around him. I think that's part of some of the issues that we're seeing is that we have to get these people around a little bit better. I think we give him better protection. And Grant, I think if he has a good cast of characters, I think he can be very successful.
All right, let's talk about the defense, Glenn. And I want to talk a little bit about Jalen Harris, who came into this season saying he wanted to have a sack per ball game. We didn't see a lot of sacks from Jalen Harris. We didn't see a lot of sacks, frankly, from anybody on this defense. Why don't you think he's been able to get on track as a dominant defensive force?
I just don't know if they're putting him in the right position. I mean, where they need to line him up where he can have an advantage in a situation. I saw him in the Arizona State game where they had him in the middle of the field. They had him dropping back, and I just don't understand. I don't know if we're not. I don't see him what he's doing in practice, or he can't do a pass rush, or if they can't stun him somewhere. But they got to get him involved. And I just didn't see that I didn't think they utilize his skills that what he has. I think that he has, okay. What I'm saying is I think he has that he can pass rush and he can get to the quarterback. We're just not putting him in that situation.
We saw a lot of walk-ons play on defense this season. Guys like Trayvon Stukes was out there after Lorenzo Burns got hurt in the ball game. Quinn Sullivan, who got himself ejected. But I'll tell you what, I thought Quinn Sullivan was one of the few guys out there that played like he wanted to be out there playing in the football game on Friday night.
Yeah, he was coming up and laying some hat. That's what we call laying the wood. He was coming up and he was giving up his body. So I was really proud about that kid, how he was doing. He took advantage of the situation of him being in that game. Could you imagine that guy probably not thinking that he's not going to play, and then all of a sudden he's playing in the rival game at Arizona State? It's just, I mean, he stepped up.
Obviously, there's going to be a new head football coach here, Glenn, in 2021. We talked a little bit about this on Saturday. The names are starting to surface. Let's get into maybe 2 of the names that have surfaced. We'll start with maybe the top name, and that's Brennan, the head football coach at San Jose State. This is a guy, Glenn, that's got some local ties to this program.
Yeah, he does. His brother, Brad Brennan, was a great wide receiver here at University of Arizona, and I believe he was a grad assistant under Dick Tomey too. So he's been here to Arizona. He's been here before, and he's doing a great job at San Jose State. And you're winning at San Jose State. That's pretty good to be able to do that. But I'm concerned about how the recruiting is going to go. We got to get some recruiting. I like his ties. He's a young guy. I think he's going to embrace the Arizona tradition and bringing in, being more open to seeing how other guys can help this program. I mean, of alumni accepting us and helping us, help us help him. So, and we haven't seen that in the last couple of regimes here. They really don't want us really around. They say they want us around, but they don't.
Yeah, and that I think that needs to change. And I want to push back on something you said Saturday, in that you don't want to see a jumper. And I would say, from my standpoint, is I think I'm fine with a jumper for this particular hire. And here's why. Because I think you need somebody, and I've always said that I believe that the coach that should be coaching here at Arizona is a young coach who's been a head coach on a lower level, whether that's, FCS, Group of Five, has run a program before. I don't think this is a job that you want for a beginner, a hot coordinator, or anything like that. I think it's got to be somebody that knows how to be a head coach already. I'm fine with that being a younger person who is on the way up. I think you need that type of energy in this community. I think you need that type of energy out on the recruiting trail. And if that guy jumps in 3 or 4 years, or maybe even 4 or 5 years, however long that it takes him to rebuild this program, when he does jump, the cupboard is going to be full. And that, to me, is the most important thing. If he leaves the cupboard full, then you can either A, go out and get the next jumper to continue the process, or maybe then you go out and get that mid-range 40 to 50-year-old guy who sees Tucson as a destination place. Then you've got yourself set up potentially to be consistently a good program for the next 15 years. But I think you got to get that guy that's going to build it first, and that may not be a guy who's got a long-term plan here in Tucson.
Well, Dave, the last couple of jumpers we had, Mike Stoops, and Mike's left.
But Mike Stoops was a coordinator. He was not a head coach. He was not a sitting head coach.
Yeah, and then Rich Rod was a jumper.
Well, and Rich Rod, I put Rich Rod, I put McAfee, I put Sumlin in a different category. Those were retread guys that were coming from other Division I programs. They weren't on the way up. They were probably more so on the way down. So those are different guys. I don't put them in the young jumper category. I put them more in the old jumper category. You definitely don't want to make that type of hire, but I think you're okay to hire a guy that's young, in his 30s, who's energetic, who's on his way up, he might leave you for an SEC team or an ACC team, a high-level ACC team, but he's going to leave you in a good spot when he does so. I'm fine with that type of hire.
Yeah, I'm not. I'd like to see somebody who's going to stay here, and I understand everybody thinks that I'm old school and everything about, I like the Dick Tomey that stayed here as long as he could. Okay, I like a guy that wants to stay here, wants to be here in Tucson, Arizona, wants to respect our institution, the University of Arizona, wants to buy in, wants to be buying in our community. That's what I think we've been missing since Dick Tomey, buying into our community. And that's how I think we can build our program. If that guy is a young guy and he's doing that, then bring him on. Bring him on. And if he eventually jumps, then I guess I'm going to have to deal with that, with him being a jumper. But I want a guy that's here that's going to buy into our community, buy into our tradition of our letterman, of what we have established, and know about it. Not just blow it off like it's no big deal. I'm going to start a new thing, and no one has started a new thing. So it was like, it just kind of bothers me that it's just disrespectful to former players here. And I'm telling you, I think that goes along with every single university. It's just pretend to do it at least. And that's what I don't mind if they pretend to do it and then get the program going. We have to be able to, and I want someone to bring in some other Wildcats. There's plenty of Wildcats that are out there, or quality coaches that can be position coaches here or coordinators. So we need to do that, and we haven't tried that yet, and I think that we need to try it this time.
All right, and I want to circle back to that as well, and what Arizona State has done, and I've applauded what Ray Anderson has done with the way that they've kind of built their football program in an NFL mentality, hiring a lot of NFL guys. Would you like to maybe see that type of direction? Maybe not necessarily a head coach or a former NFL head coach. Again, we're talking about, that would be, the kind of the CEO mentality. Do you think that would work here in Tucson?
Yeah, and we have to get 7 assistant coaches that can recruit. Every single one of them. We had, when Rich Rod was here, we had some guys that just didn't recruit. They didn't go out and recruit. They just didn't do it. And we have to be able to have 7 guys on that staff. I think it's the number of 7 that they have, and they have to be able to recruit. They have to have some specialty in recruiting. We got to get the Polynesian pipeline going again. We got to get California going again. We got to win the state of Arizona. We have to win the state of Arizona. We have to go into Phoenix and start taking guys out of Phoenix. We have to be able to do that. We have to establish that. We had to go over. I don't mind going over to Texas and go and get some people out of Texas. You got to be able to do that. We haven't had any Polynesian kids here in ages. So we need to start getting that pipeline going again.
And I'll tell you what, I tweeted this one, if I were Dave Hickey, out earlier, and I'm going to add a second one to the list. If I were Dave Hickey, I would not hire a coach who does not have a passing game plan for the tight end in his offense. That's a kudos to you, but that's also because I believe that's winning football. You've got to win. I mean, look at that USC-UCLA game. They almost single-handedly beat the Trojans the other night with their tight end.
Exactly. And every single successful team in NCAA they use their tight end. They're using their tight end.
No more offenses that don't utilize the tight end. And the other thing I would say, going back to what you just said and winning Arizona, pick whatever recruiting service you want that rates players in Arizona, but you need to go out there and offer the top 15 kids in every single class. Make sure they have an offer on the table. I had this conversation with somebody the other day. I said I hearkened it to the airline industry. You oversell. You just put those offers out, and if you get too many kids that commit, then you worry about chopping the list down later. But you make sure every kid in this state that's top 15 has a knowledge that you want them to play at the University of Arizona, and then you flesh it out once all the commitments come in.
I just didn't understand the arrogance of our program not to do that. Okay, where are you evaluating what? Evaluate your program. You see that, well, hey, we're not winning, so we're gonna say you're not good enough. You're not good enough. Bruno Fina, we come on him late. We got to school down the street. That's what we can ride our bikes down there to South Point and get those kids. Every single one of their top kids should be offered. We should be able to do that. Anywhere in Tucson, they should be able to do that. They our arrogance of our evaluation process has got to change.
All right, we're going to get much more into the transition that this program is going through with the firing of Kevin Sumlin. But as always, you're going to have to join us just a little bit later over at KVOA.com/sports.